being recorded.
This is Liz Haney, and I'm going to be giving a training on exit surveys in Homekeeper today in April of 2014. And we are just waiting for a few more folks to call in, I believe. I see two more numbers on the line. Who's calling in from the 360 number?
That's Michelle.
Okay, great. I'm glad you were able to get in. And then, Michael, are you on the 510 number?
This is Tiffany. I'm listening in. I think that's me.
Oh, okay. Thinking that Michael has not called in yet. Okay. Great. Okay. And looks like we're waiting on a couple more people to call in, but that's okay. I will get started since we're after 2/11 right now, and we'll be recording this. So if anyone is listening, they can see. So today we want to do a training on exit surveys in Homekeeper. It's kind of that last section in Homekeeper on the service file. But what we really want to capture is why those fields are important, how you can include them in your program's practice, and once you are collecting those fields, what you can do with them. So we'll kind of go through the technical aspects of what is an exit survey, how could I do one, and then I've created some examples. So I'm going to be pulling up pictures of some example reports and dashboards I've created, and if we have time, I can answer questions about that or kind of get into my training account and show you folks how those are working. So I'll get started. So exit surveys, I did get some questions about this. When we talk about an exit survey, we're talking about not a survey you would ask a buyer every year, but a survey you would ask a homeowner who bought in your program and then went on to resell their home. And this kind of begs the question, why should I care about that? Why should I be bothering these buyers who are selling from my program with questions? And so some of the questions that you can you can answer by inquiring with your buyers or having conversations with your buyers when they do decide to resell. You can answer questions like, do more of your buyers go on to rent or own a home of their own? And this is really important for telling your story in program practice and talking about the success of your program. Do you know why your buyers sell? Is it because your homes are too small? Do they want to own market rate? Are they not able to afford their mortgage? And all of these things have implications for your program practice and how you evaluate your program structures, your resale formulas, the sizes of the homes you build. So these can be really great sources of information. Another thing, come up, you might need to send a notice to someone who used to own one of your homes for various reasons, but if you're not collecting their address after they sell, you won't be able to do that. So here's kind of a collective list of why exit surveys matter, and I sort of touched on these, and I'm sure you folks might have other reasons why you might want to. But it really gives you insights onto how your program's working, and another thing, gives you insight into how buyers are going to interpret their story when they go on to sell and they become just your community who are attesting to the benefits or detriments of your program, family, coworkers, bosses. And as I mentioned, getting feedback about the size of home or the reason why they're selling allows you to incorporate that into decisions your program is making. And yeah, I touched on all the that you can know people's contact information and know why they're selling. And then one reason I included at the bottom of this is that you can make sure that your social impact report is complete. There are some fields that are part of the Homekeeper National Rollup, and if you don't fill those in, some of the charts in the social impact report will be blank. So another thing about why exit surveys matter, this is a graph from a study that the Urban Institute did. It was a survey of 10 programs trying to evaluate the benefits of shared equity and long-term affordable home ownership. And this is a chart of the exit survey data that they got or did not get from those programs. So as you can see, what I have highlighted in orange and then the question is in with the orange arrow. 3 of the programs couldn't tell the researchers what their main reasons for moving were. So there were 3 programs that this data was just blank for the survey. They couldn't tell you why their buyers moved. They couldn't tell where their buyers moved to, and they couldn't tell whether their buyers were moving on to market rate home ownership. And those are all really great stories to tell if you have that information. As you can see that more than 50% of these buyers in these programs are moving on to market rate home ownership. These other programs couldn't tell that story. And I am going to mute you folks, but if you do want to talk, I will unmute you, and you can also unmute yourself by hitting *6.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
Great. So I'm just checking. Can you folks still hear me? If anyone can tell, type yes. Okay, great. So as I was saying, this is from the Urban Institute study about long-term affordable homeownership programs, and there were these 3 programs that were really missing out on telling the great story of their programs. So I just wanted to point that out as something that if your program member participates in a research study, or if you just want to start talking about these things, they're questions you have to answer as soon as possible. And so here are the charts. And transitioning, here are the charts that are actually about exit survey information in the social impact report. Charts 25 through 27 capture some of the questions. And these are the aspects that we'll be collecting across the sector. So you'll be able to know when we start talking about the aggregate data what the average reasons for other programs buyers to sell are. And so now I've been talking all about exit kind of in general, but when we actually start talking about where exit surveys appear in Homekeeper, as I mentioned, exit survey questions in Homekeeper appear at the bottom of the service file. So this is the very last section if you scroll all the way down on the service file. And you can see that not all of the fields in action are actually required according to the national roll-up. Some are just there for you to use should you want to use them. So the ones in orange you can see are the ones that are national roll-up fields. So if you hit review national roll-up data, those fields are going to be the ones that show up. And they're mainly about where your buyers are moving on to, both in their physical address and in the tenure type of their next home, and about the reason they sold, plus what their experience was like. And so because those are kind of technical, they don't actually give you the question that those fields are trying to answer. So these are actually the questions that you would want to ask to be able to capture that information. What was the seller's next home tenure type? Did they go on to rent or did they go on to own? What was their overall experience in the program? If they'd go on to buy, did they receive public assistance to buy that home? What was the primary reason for sale? And what was their next residential address? And so you can see there's a link on this slide. There's also a link on the training. I put up a link to the training, which you'll see in the web links. And you can go on there for more information about what these questions are as I move on. And so some other features I have to note while we're talking about being in that section in Homekeeper. So at the same time that you're going to be filling out exit survey information about your buyers, you just want to remember that you're using other features that are related to transitions and ownership in Homekeeper the correct way. So I want to make sure that you're copying the address to the contact, so that you're copying the seller's new address, which you saw back here, and you're going to want to make sure that you're copying that to their contact record. And so that's what this copy address to contacts link is for, where the up status button, that's going to allow you to change the status on the property, the service file, and on the contact records. So it's going to allow you to say on the contact, this is not a homeowner, this is a past owner. On the property, it can allow you to change from owner occupied to under purchase. And on the service file, it'll allow you to change them to past homeowner. So I just wanted to point those out since those are really important for keeping your data clean talking about by moving through your program. And then I wanted to, since we've kind of gone over the overview, I wanted to call out some scenarios that various folks on the call might be running into. So some of the scenarios we were going to touch upon were my program didn't include exit surveys historically, or we're missing some, or we're not sure what's in Homekeeper. And then we've got our exit surveys in. What do we do now? And so the answer to number one we're hoping is if you didn't include exit surveys historically, you're going to start. So this first section is about, so I get that this information is about where would I start. And so we'll also be asking for you folks to chime in. Since you're the ones actually implementing these, you'll probably have some insights about what's best. Different ways that we've known some of our users have implemented exit surveys have been in the form of a physical survey, or they have staff post-purchase interviews with their buyers. So they actually verbally work with their buyers, and then the staff is able to input this information into Homekeeper. And programs do this at different times. Some people will include a physical survey in the closing documents at closing, or they will follow up with a buyer to fill out a form or for an interview after the sale of their home. And then, as I had touched on before, we do have the list of what the questions you need to ask for Homekeeper to be complete. According to our national roll-up data, I touched upon that a couple slides back. But then it's really open to you. It's about your program, and it's about what you want to know. I think your buyers will tolerate, or your staff will tolerate, whether you want to do a long or short survey, whether an interview or paper would work better, and for what's relevant for your program. And in here, I have a couple examples of exit surveys that are cornerstone in the CLT network, just which could spur some ideas for if you wanted to implement one and you haven't done that yet. But then...
Hey, Elizabeth? Hi.
Hi.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah, sure. So you put the link here, right? So so I guess I assume, after this, you will send us or you put this in the My Homekeeper forums, or so we can look at it and click the link and go to that report or the samples? Is that how it works?
Yeah, actually, so if you look, there's like the little chat box on the right side of the webinar room, if you get full screen. And actually in there, you'll see some links to go to the training documents. So I actually already posted the training materials from this webinar there. So you'll actually find all the materials today on there.
Okay. All right.
And I can post that in the chat box as well.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
And then I kind of wanted to open it up because I know there's a lot of folks on the call. I will unmute you. Just we wanted to hear how you collect exit surveys and what works, or if you've run into anything that totally doesn't work. So I will unmute you folks right now.
All guests have been muted.
So you're actually going to have to, if you want to speak up, press *6. Huh. Hey, Tiffany, do you know what the unmute code is?
All guests have been muted. You mute your line by pressing *6.
So I'll try *6 again. I just tried to turn on the ability for you guys to unmute yourselves. It's asking me if I don't like to allow you to, which I'm trying. Hi, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we haven't looked at much data because we don't have homeowners that respond.
And how is it that do you try to interview them, or do you physically give them a survey?
Yeah, we give them the survey to fill out. And, 9 out of 10 don't send it back.
Okay. And I'm seeing what Kelly has mentioned, that pleasure rather than answers come.
And we don't have any hold over them to fill it out.
Right.
Because our process is the property sells from homeowner to homeowner.
Yeah.
So.
But then Cheryl, do you sometimes just know, having facilitated the resale process, do you know where they're moving and what type of ownership they're moving on to?
Not all the time. I meant if we know, I'll put it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, I could say everybody just had a tremendous experience with the program.
You could.
But we'd all know that probably isn't true. So I would say, well, we never did exit surveys before we started using HomeKeeper.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of historical data, and I would say since we started using HomeKeeper, what's it been, 3 years now? We've probably had about 30, 35 resales, and probably don't even have half the information.
Great. And then I'm seeing a question from Kelly in the chat box asking if anyone has specific questions that would bring forth pertinent answers, not just good or bad experience answers. Could you say a little bit more about that, Kelly? And feel free to chime in, anybody else. It looks like *6 is working.
Because we've had such a hassle with people returning them, we just ask the questions that were HomeKeeper because they're very short and sweet.
Okay, great. And I'm seeing some really interesting ideas popping up in the chat window. So Tyler from Proudground was mentioning that they have a resale application that they actually fill out when they want to sell their home. And so it's in the resale application that they ask your exit survey questions.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and then Samantha, it looks like you have on the notice of intent to resell that you actually put those questions on there. So you tend to get more responses. Okay, and Kelly's asking if there was questions about expectations around resale. Great. And then Tyler, did you see Cheryl's question in the chat box? She was just asking if you would be willing to share that reputation. And it sounds like, Samantha, your document would be really well.
Hi, everyone. This is Tyler. Our homeownership program manager, Katie Ulrich, has joined us as well.
Okay. Hi, Katie.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good. Yeah. We sure we can definitely share that. Is there? How do I?
You can just send it to me or Tiffany, and we'll make sure it gets circulated.
And then I just stepped in, and I apologize, but and I don't know if now is a good time to ask this question, but one of the exit survey questions is the reason for selling their home, and what I get when I do my app is I get several of those things marked, like they might want to buy a non-restricted home, but they also want to move out of the neighborhood. And I think in HomeKeeper, if I'm not correct, you can only choose reason for resale?
Yeah, that field is it's like a drop-down. It's not a multi-select.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Tiffany. I can is your question, can it be a multi-select?
Well, I know it's a national roll-up field, right? So I guess I just need to know if I should be asking, what is your main reason for selling, only pick one?
Yeah, I think so. There's two questions in there: primary reason for purchase and primary reason for resale. Those actually line up exactly with the list, more or less, except for I think a couple exceptions regarding the restrictions. But they line up more or less with a survey National Association of Realtors does for buyers and sellers every year, and they have it be like pick your top, like what's the primary, like what's the first reason. If you want to collect multiple ones, I guess you could create another field and collect, you know, the several reasons. But that's why it's just pick like the primary. So you could also have people hand write like open-ended and then you code it. But that's the way it's set up. The way it was.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, folks. I know there's a few other folks who are on the call who haven't spoken up, which is fine. But if anyone else wanted to share their experience, we'd love to hear it. If exit surveys are easy for your program, if they're difficult, or if you aren't even thinking of it, you haven't had any resale. That's entirely possible as well.
I'd say you're lucky if you haven't had any resales.
Okay, great. Well, I will make sure that we circulate the documents mentioned after this meeting. So we have the list of you folks since you signed in, and we can circulate anything that was shared around. And I'm just seeing, before I move on, I'm just seeing that Susan's thing. So I'll hold on 1 second before I move on to the next section. And then, or while we're waiting, so Jacqueline, you actually attend the closings with the sellers, and they're perfectly happy to fill out the survey?
Yeah, we attend all of our closings. So while the buyer is doing all their signing of all their papers, they're usually sitting there twiddling their thumbs. So we have them fill out the exit survey at that time.
Okay.
If they are comfortable, we do allow them to mail it into us. And we're actually working on creating maybe a form assembly exit survey that we could email to them after closing if they don't submit it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so
and if someone really doesn't want to give it to us, then we just talk to them. We always ask for updated contact information so we know where they're going. But we will just fill out the survey to the best of our knowledge for them if someone really doesn't want to give it back to us.
Yeah. Great, and just for everyone's reference, Jacqueline mentioned form assembly. Form assembly is another tool online that allows you to create surveys, and it does have the ability to connect with Salesforce. So some of our HomeKeeper users are actually able to, the first thing that most people have built out is an online application. But we have heard from a couple groups that they think an online exit survey form might receive responses. And, you know, we don't know what would work best, but if you do that, Jacqueline, it'll be really interesting to see if that's effective. And I saw that Susie said they've only had one resale, so they haven't needed to collect any exit surveys yet. So I will move on to the next scenario, which sounds like it might apply to some folks. So that exit survey is important, but some of that information is missing, or we don't exactly know what's in HomeKeeper. And so one way you can test this to kind of just get an overview of what is in HomeKeeper. You can create a list view on your service files, and you can drag all those fields that are exit survey questions on view. And kind of what Jacqueline was talking about and what other groups might be able to do if you don't know where buyers went. Let's see. I put a picture. Okay. So you can sit down on your computer like this of that, and you can fill in the things that you do know. So a lot of times it seems like programs would probably know what the next home tenure type of their buyer might be. Did they go on to own or did they go on to rent? And so as you can see in this list view that I took a screenshot of, you can, if you were this cat sitting down to fill this in, you double click on the blanks and you could fill them in to the best of your memory. And just to mention for you folks, there's a how-to of how to create actually this exact list view on the support forums. And I think it should be clickable on here, but training document. But the reason you're able to edit this list view is because it's actually it's sorted by record type. And when a list view is sorted by record type, it means the inline editing. So that means you can double-click right there and you can say Gregory Boyle on to own. And so that allows you to kind of do a quick run and to get in what you do know from staff memory. But knowing all of that, referencing back to the survey, sometimes there's things you just won't know unless you had an exit survey or you actually are able to get that information from your buyers. So there are some things you won't ever know. Not to put a damper on the mood, but it's just something to think about. And now the fun part. So if you have some exit survey information, what can you do with it? So this is kind of the exciting part rather than, oh, what's missing? But if you have it, what is it? And so you can create reports and you can talk about how many of your buyers move on to market rate home ownership. As you saw in the survey, in those programs, their buyers were moving on to market rate home ownership. You can talk about the buyers are selling. So using the seller zip code or the seller county field, you can describe where they're moving within the region or within, and you can talk about whether people are moving on to rent or to own, of ownership. There's a years owned field on the service file that does the difference between the certified close date and the resale close date. And we'll tell you actually the exact number of years the buyer owns a home. And you'll actually find on the support forums, I wrote up how you would create these sample reports that you could then feed into the dashboard. And so you can see that I was able to create this sample dashboard after writing some exit survey reports. And you can really highlight lots of information once you have exit surveys. So you can see I use different components that are part of dashboards on here. I tried to do one of everything just to kind of, get my hands and your hands onto types of dashboard components. But you can see there's all kinds of information you can highlight from the exit surveys. The number of years your buyers owned before they resold, where they moved, see in the funnel chart. You can get a table of the reasons why they sold. And yeah, so you'll find this on the support forums. And we have quite a bit of time, so if you wanted to, I can dig into the training account, kind of show you some, real-life action of the list view or the dashboards of the report. But once you have complete exit survey data, you really give life and legs to the story you're telling about the benefits of your program. So yeah, we have plenty of time for questions, comments, and discussion. So we can open it up who had any other questions about how to implement an exit survey or had any questions about reports or the list view, reports, or dashboards that I just kind of really quickly skimmed by. And again, if you want to unmute yourself, it should. And so there's a question from Michael about can we do a survey not just at resale? How does the family do in a set period of time? And so right now, Homekeeper cannot do that with what's built into Homekeeper. Right now, there's one service file there's one service file, and it has the fields for, their reason for application and their reason for sale, and those are singular fields on the service file. So you need to add lots of fields to the service file if you wanted to all live on the service file. So it's not anything that is built in right now. I don't know if are any of the programs on the call, are any of you doing annual surveys with your buyers? And Kelly, I'm seeing your question in the chat box. Tiffany, did you want to talk about kind of the capabilities of Homekeeper, the one-time survey versus multiple surveys at all?
I'm not. If you had a set of fields on the service file and they were changing over time, there is a way. You could create a separate object like financial success survey or something and link it to that service file and track over time. So it's not inherently built in. The assumption is you're not tracking in multiple increments. If you want to just capture one question, you're reaching out to folks at those intervals, you might just add questions to the service file.
Yeah. And then I would also mention that I know that some have really been able to harness third-party apps, and so just knowing Salesforce and Salesforce, I have a feeling that there are other apps that are able to capture surveys like that in good ways. I know that I think it was found Eventbrite for registration worked well for their program. So, and I know people are more, more eager to jump in, but there are third-party apps that can probably, well, I'm guessing there are third-party apps that can also do surveys in a more, in a cleaner way than you would have to by adding multiple fields on the service file. But if it's kind of how are things going, and it's the same question, and to ask at year one experience, year two experience, add that. But to address Kelly's question, so I am not reports are available to use, but I am not saying that's a wheel. We actually, so I wrote up how to create these reports in the system. So there's a link in the web links to the exit survey report examples. And so I wrote up what everything you need to do to create these reports. So you can see on here, I can't get it to zoom apparently, but I wrote down, you're going to want the same filters for all of these reports, but the filters would be, you want to always make sure it's all services, that you aren't filtering out anything by date, although you could probably use close date, but the main filter I used for making sure this is data on past owners was selecting status equals past owner. And so in this document on the support forum, I talked about the filters that you needed to add to the report, then what fields you want as columns, and then what fields you want in the summary rows. Because the summary rows are really what information that's going to be illustrated is. And then if there was any details, how I added the chart to the report, I put that down here. So it should be at least a start. And then I also have, I didn't link it in here, but I also created reports. If you create these reports, you should actually be able to duplicate the dashboard that I showed you. Because I created these as all the basis for my dashboard. So you can see in my training instance, we have this dashboard, the past owner dashboard. But if I click through, it'll take me to this past homeowner location report. And yeah, so and what Tiffany mentioned was if like this is a really valuable dashboard and it's something you would want to see just push down a new release, let us know. Or if there's other dashboards that you think would apply to lots of different HomeKeeper users.
And I could just mention Michael's question again. I mean, you can have, if you're asking more questions at the time of resale, I think you could easily add them to the exit survey section. So you could add additional questions and have them push in there. If you have a standard survey you're sending out in multiple times or multiple intervals before, at, resale, and after, I would probably consider making a separate object, meaning a separate list of surveys. You could have one service file and multiple surveys, so you could compare changes over time. It's really just meant to track in time at the time they left your program, the exit survey information right there. So it's assuming you're only doing one exit survey.
Yeah. So a good example of that kind of concept in HomeKeeper is actually on the property object. So, and I don't think users are actually using this object. Actually, I'll go to this property. But the object on the property is meant to capture what actually assessed values. So we have this assessed values related list on the property, and that's so that you could see assessed values on a property are over time. So if you kind of think about the service file in the same way, if you're going to be asking the same questions in like 1999, 2000, 2000, if you had those listed out as 1999, 2000, 2001, you're going to end up using a lot of fields on you would end up using a lot of fields on the service file. But with related objects, you are able to do related objects in a cleaner way. If you're going to be doing a survey or on the property, if you're putting what the assessed values are every year for 10 years, it's a lot easier than putting a field that would say first year taxes, second year taxes. I don't know if that's more confusing, but that's kind of the concept.
Liz, may I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I was trying to update assessed values, or I was updating assessed values just yesterday, and
okay.
It said that the assessed value in the field that you're in right now was supposed to automatically populate with the most current entry, and mine's not automatically populating. It's not tracking history, I guess. I don't know if it's just the help text was wrong and it doesn't, or if I'm
like in here it said that, or on the service file.
In the property file.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, okay. So right here.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just not. It's not updating with the new values.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we should put a ticket in for you because it should be populating.
Okay.
It might be something might just be going wrong. But we will follow up with you on that.
Okay.
Did anybody else have any questions about exit surveys or about the dashboards? Or has anyone who's doing the exit surveys been able to already create something like this and has really great ideas that I didn't think of about what you would want to capture? Great, yeah, and so it looks like Michael was just mentioning that capturing the data rather than just the application at resale, you can kind of see, you would be able to see better the situation of that family over time, which I think is totally true. But yeah, and I think that I'm not sure if other programs feel the same way. But even though I recognize that right now, I do know that HomeKeeper doesn't do that automatically right now. But I mean, Michael's totally right. Yeah.
I have a question. People who are tracking assessed value, tracking it through property tax records?
So Kelly said yes.
Okay.
And I think you can usually get that online.
Yeah, you can. But we have over 200 properties, so it's not something.
Right.
Yes. I've heard some programs, well, I don't know if you all, they get it, they get copies of the statements.
Oh, no, we don't.
This is Katie at Proud Ground, and we actually do a pretty extensive homeowner survey every 2 years, and we have it set up on SurveyMonkey and ask all of that, like quality of life type things. It asks if there's any maintenance repairs that they're concerned with, whether they're having trouble paying their mortgage. It also asks them about like what local grocery stores they shop at and their insurance company and where they bank, so that we can use that information in grant requests.
Oh, okay.
So we don't put any of that obviously into Homekeeper, but it is a way to gauge what people are doing and use our homeowners as a way to kind of show their impact in the community, and whether, one of the questions we ask is whether they're more involved in their community now. We have open-ended questions about what they enjoy about being a homeowner that we use in our marketing also.
Excellent. And then Katie, what's your return rate for those forms? Do most people send them back?
Good question. The last one we did was in 2012. We do offer them, we enter them into a raffle for a $50 gift card if they respond within a certain date. And we don't get that great of a response still,
Okay.
but say maybe it looks like in 2012 we probably got maybe homeowners. So maybe like, closer to under 50% for sure.
Great. And then, Katie, we also had a question. Do you think you could share just a copy of the questions that you asked? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Great. And Michael, Katie's from Proud Ground, which is in Portland, Oregon. And Katie, do you have that linking to Salesforce in any way, or is it totally separate?
Totally separate, actually.
Okay. I have a feeling there might be a link, but I don't know about it actually, whether there is a link to Salesforce.
Like you mean with SurveyMonkey?
Yeah, like there is for Vertical Response and Conga and all those nonprofit mailers that do work with nonprofits. They all have Salesforce apps generally that allow you to sync it with other data.
Oh.
So SurveyMonkey's pretty big, so I would say
that would be so exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, we are using Form Assembly for our online application and for people for our info sessions. So I guess that's another way. But we have so much set up on SurveyMonkey, and SurveyMonkey is so much easier to use. Oh, that's good to know.
I'm not sure, but I would.
Okay. Well, we can dream.
Yeah, we can dream. And I feel like groups on other calls that Justin Collins had been sampling if you go to the App Exchange on Salesforce, you can kind of explore what options there are out there that integrate with Salesforce. Sometimes they're not that great with custom objects. Some objects are what Homekeeper is built on, but so some of our users have found things on here. So actually, I don't think Form Assembly, but I think so. You can, if you use Vertical Response, for example, that can link with Salesforce.
Okay, we have a few more minutes left. Liz, I was wondering if I could ask Katie to say a little bit more about the impact they're trying to measure annually regarding equity building. And not to put you on the spot, Katie, but we've had an interesting email exchange. I think it's really exciting how you guys are attempting to track asset building and equity years. And I guess the question to everyone else is anyone else doing that and or interested in doing that?
Sure. So what the dream that we have is to have an object on the service file that would be called a wealth creation estimate, and we have an appraisal-based formula. So it would basically it takes the unrestricted appraised value at the time that the person bought their home. The Metro area is actually one of the 20 major metropolitan areas that's used in the Case-Shiller Price Index. So we have that kind of going for us. So we're going to be using that to gauge the percentage of annual increase in the metro area for real estate, of course, and calculating that each year to figure out what the current estimated unrestricted market value would be of the property, and then applying our resale formula to that percentage increase. Our resale formula is 25% of the increase in appraised value. So we can determine, based upon that, we could determine what the current person's estimated share of the appraised value would be. That would then be calculated or added to how much the homeowner, if they've obviously made all their payments on time on their loan, figure out what their estimated current loan balance would be, and so to figure out how much equity they would have if they were to sell that day. So it's using a lot of estimates, but what we want to be able to do is help our grant funders and maybe some people that don't think that our homes actually create generational wealth. We want to be able to tell them on average what our current homeowners' estimated wealth is in their homes. We don't want to have to wait to do that upon resale and use resale. The other thing with that is then calculating basically what their current equity would be if they were to sell, and then calculating that based upon what their initial cash investment was to determine the return on their investment if they were to sell their home. So we wouldn't be using it to talk necessarily with our homeowners about what their equity might be, because obviously their current equity is going to be on a lot of different factors, and obviously whether they paid their mortgage payment down or not. But we'd more be looking at that to see and speak public, I guess, more advocacy, I guess, for our program is what we're looking for. Oh, so and then our surveys, actually, I see that, Michael, it's unconnected to that. It's more general about, you know, how they're doing in their house, what, if they have any, like, home repair needs. It's not about their equity or value. We haven't added anything about that to that survey yet. So I think, I mean, I guess what I am hopeful that Homekeeper might, and other organizations across the country might be interested in something similar. Obviously, we all have different resale formulas, but actually some are much easier to calculate than ours because it's based on appraised values. So you could, I think it could be done easily to calculate what the estimated current principal balance is on our family's loans and what the estimated amount they could resell their home for at that time. And those together could be used to create the estimated wealth.
Right.
I've been to Katie and I was just Tiffany and their team about it, and I think it's interesting. And I think one thing we could do is see if there are other folks interested in building out that type of customization in the same way. You know, and that might be one way we can match make or at least help folks cost share to help several people get the same customization or similar customizations into their system more cost efficiently. And we definitely are looking at it, but right now we weren't planning on including it into the package. We are going to be rolling out return on investment at the time of resale, which you see in the social impact reports, but will be reflected in your HomeKeeper, so you can report on it whenever you want.
What questions we actually ask in our survey every 2 years is how long our homeowners plan to stay in their homes. And I would say the last time it was like 75% of them said that they plan to stay in their home a good long time rather than any of the other years that we offered as an option. And so I think the idea that our homeowners have found a house, a lot of people call it their forever house, like they're looking at this as a really long-term purchase and investment because it was so affordable and all the things that we bring to the table. So I think it would be important for us to twist on resale because our homeowners may not be reselling. That's why we think it's important to add this to our database. Is anybody else excited about that? Anybody else on the call?
On the call. Sometimes
Okay.
Some people like typing better.
Okay, great. Sorry.
We'll be shopping that idea around and others in Cleveland as well. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's definitely pieces that are, HomeKeeper definitely has some pieces that could feed into that. So. And Katie, I also think there's probably some other folks who aren't on this call today who might be interested. But yeah, I'm also just seeing that it is 2:55 here in DC. Unless anybody has any other questions or comments, we can probably wrap this up. And once we get the documents that you folks had mentioned, we can circle those around to the folks who are on this call. And you can check out the training document to find out how to recreate those dashboards or reports, which might give you ideas for other ones as well.
Feel free to add your comments about the webinar. I'm always looking for sound bites and quotes to use when we are talking about the services that we provide with your member fees.
Great, and hopefully
Thanks,
we'll see a lot of folks in Cleveland. So if you're going to Cleveland, make sure you sign up for a one-on-one with us. I can pull the link up. And if you haven't already, I'll be getting there on Sunday night, and Tiffany will be there on Monday. So you can, if you haven't gone in yet, you can go in and sign up on here and to get on one-on-one. So if you want help with something specific, like if you have any tickets open, or if you just want help doing something in HomeKeeper, feel free to sign up. You'll get an hour of one-on-one time with us. So hopefully you can go. Great. Well, thank you, folks, for all calling in, and have a good Friday and a good weekend. Yep. And I will, Michael, I'll probably wait until the recording takes a couple hours to process, but I'll update the link, and I'll try to do that at the same time that I send around the documents. So it should be just a couple days at most.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, guys.